What is going on, guys? It's RealTutsGML here, back with another Java game development video for you guys. And today is going to be the startup of a new series I am creating. Now, I titled it Let's Build a Game, and basically the reason why I titled it this is because in this series we're not going to be creating a very specific genre type of game. We're not, for example, we're not going to be building a platformer or shooter or something along those lines. We're just basically this series is specified to have you guys learn the base fundamentals for game programming and design, right? So in this series we're going to be learning, menu systems, enemy AI, reading, writing files for game saves and game loads, music and sounds, player customization, spawning systems, upgrades, power-ups, collision detection, all of that type of stuff. Now, I'm going ahead and put up on the screen right now a little preview of what we're going to be creating. And for those guys that have been with my channel for a long time, you will know what this game is. This game is called Wave, and basically this is the first Java game I've ever created. Now, this is actually Wave 2 that you're seeing. I'm going to put in the description, I have a whole playlist of little updates I made while creating Wave 2, and I'll also put a playlist of Wave 1 videos, which was Wave 1 was my first actual Java game I ever released and made, completed. So this game is basically under the specifications of basically your box, and you have to dodge these other boxes. The most basic concept you can actually get with a game. But we can bring it one step further by creating upgrade stores. You can upgrade your player in different ways. The longer you survive, you gain points, and you are then able to use those points in a store to upgrade your player's speed or health or something along those lines. So again, this is not really going to be a game that you're going to want to create, as the idea isn't really very original. But from my experience of creating Wave 1 and Wave 2, it really set the foundation for learning the basics of game design and programming, right? It really just taught me everything there is to know. Well, not everything, but a lot of what there is to know for the basics. So with that being said, you probably got a quick preview. If you want to see more of what we are going to create, again, links in the description, and you can go ahead and check all of that out. But for now, let's go ahead and start. Oh, one more thing with this series is I'm going to actually lengthen up the episodes for these series videos here, just so I can have less videos. So I'm not having to go up into the 30s range of parts. I'm really going to try and shoot for 20-30 minute videos here, and that will minimize the amount of videos that need to come out. So every time I do release a video, there's going to be a lot more content than the original, 5-minute videos I used to create with my Java game development series and my Java game programming platformer series. Alright, so I went ahead and started up a project here. Just let's build a game. We have our SRC source. Now, if you don't know if you don't have Eclipse installed or anything, I am using Eclipse. And go ahead and download Eclipse. If you're so new to Java where you don't even have Java installed, go ahead and look up some tutorials on YouTube for that. I believe I have one if you want to go on my channel and search installing Java. But so if you don't have all of that, then go ahead and download that, and let's get back to the series here. So here's my SRC folder. I'm just going to create a new package. Just kind of organize things. Packages, again, just think of it as organizing something. So I'm just going to say tutorial.main. That's a good package right there. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new class, and I'm going to name this class game. Now this is going to be our main class. This is the go-to class where everything is going to be handled, and this is where we're going to draw everything to the screen. This is where we're going to have our main method for our game. So this is going to be the go-to class. Alright, so let's go ahead and just create a main method here, public static void main string args, and there we go. Alright, so what I'm going to do to just kind of organize this a little bit is I'm going to create another class on top of this, and I'm going to name it window. Okay, and with window, I'm going to extend canvas. Alright, and we can go ahead and hover over this and add a generated serial version ID. And also I added the canvas import by hitting Control Shift and O all at the same time. That will organize and import everything that's not actually imported. If you don't want to do it that way, or for some reason it doesn't work, what you can do is you can hover over canvas. This is if you're using Eclipse, and you can click import, and it imports that for you. Alright, so with our window class, this class is basically the only purpose for this class is just to create the window for us. So we can create a constructor, public window, and in the parameters have a width, height, and a title. And in here we can just basically, you know, create our window. So here, let's go ahead and set up a JFrame. Frame equals new JFrame, and in the parameters we're going to put a title. So that's just really going to set up our title for our game, which is going to be the window title. And here we can just set everything up. So frame.set preferred size, new dimension, width, height. Go ahead and Control Shift O on the dimension import. We can copy this and paste it 2 more times. And here we are going to go ahead and set maximum size and minimum size. Alright. And I'll explain this a little bit after I go ahead and set up all the code. So now I'm just going to say set frame.set default close operation, jframe.exit on close, frame.set resizable to false, frame.set location relative to null. And here we are going to say frame.add, and I'm going to put game here, and that's actually something I forgot to leave in the parameters. So we need to actually create an instance of our game within our window constructor parameters, because we need to use that, right? And then so now we're also going to say frame.set visible to true, and game.start, and that's going to be a function we create within our game class here. So if we go over to our game class, we're going to need to do a couple things. We're going to need to extends canvas again and implements runnable, and we're also going to create a public synchronized void start method and a public void run method. And if we go ahead and just add generated serial version ID right there. So there we are. So now we've got our window class. This is actually completely done now, and we've got our game class. So if I go ahead and look in the window class here, this is basically what we've done. We've created a JFrame, and a JFrame is basically the frame of our window, right? So that's an inbuilt library within Java JRE. So we use that, and we say JFrame, and then we set the variable name to frame. So every time we say frame dot, we're basically referring back to these JFrame functions within the JRE. So here we're setting preferred size, we're setting up a new dimension, width, height, we're setting the maximum size, the minimum size, and then frame.set default close operation. This is basically within Java. If you want this, think of this as just having the X button, you know, in the top right corner actually be working. So if we didn't set this up, you're gonna have problems, because if you exit out, it's not gonna actually stop the thread in the game operations. So make sure you have that. That's pretty important. Frame.set resizable. This is just means, can we resize our window? And I don't want us to, because that's gonna bring up a whole lot of problems in our future. So we're just gonna set that to false. Frame.set location relative to null. This basically, if we didn't put this, this is not needed. But our window would start in the top left. If we put it to null, it's going to just start in the middle of our screen, which is pretty handy. Here we're adding our game class into our frame, right? This is very important. If you don't have that, you're going to come up with some problems. We're setting the frame to visible so we can actually see it. And then we're just creating or running that start method that we created right here. Alright, so if we go ahead and in our public stat, or our main method, let's just create a new instance of our game class, which is going to in turn call our constructor. And here we can just say new window, and we can put in our width, height, our title. So we can just say let's build a game, and this as in referring to our game parameter. So here we can just say public static final int width, and we're going to equal that to 640, and our height equal to width divided by 12 times 9, which is just gives a, I believe, 16 by 9 ratio, or something like that. You can say, or you can set your height to whatever you want. I just use this algorithm just for, you know, an ease of creating a nice aspect ratio. So if we go ahead and do that and we run the game, yes, as you can see, we get a window. Let's build a game title, and we've got a cool little window going on here. So this all works. It's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and continue. So now that we've got this, we're gonna go ahead and create a thread. So if we say private thread, okay, now we need a thread. This is basically how the entire game is going to run within this thread. Now this game is gonna be a single threaded game, which is not really recommended, but it should be fine for the simplicity of what we want to do. So here we can basically, what we're going to do is, and why we started this game.start method in our window class is because this right here is going to start up our thread, right? So we're going to need private thread, and we're going to create a boolean value, which is a true or false variable, running, and that's going to equal false, right? So in our start method here, we're going to just say thread equals new thread, this, and thread.start. Pretty simple. I mean, that's all we really need to do to start up that thread. So here we're just initializing that thread as a new thread, this referring to this instance of our game class here. This is where the thread's going to be ran, and then we just basically start the thread. So it's pretty simple. Now what we can also do is we can actually copy this and paste it down to, and put stop. In here what we can do is we can just put a try and catch statement, which basically a try and catch statement is pretty simple. Basically all it is saying, okay, it's like an if statement. So if we can do it, then do it. If we can't, then do whatever's in this piece of code. And basically e.print stack trace is basically just going to run an error bug through in our console here. So it's going to tell us why it couldn't do that. So here we're just going to say thread.join and running equals false. Here we need to also say running equals true. Forgot about that. So this running variable here just basically saying, okay, is it running or is it not running? So is the thread on or is the thread not on? And thread.join is basically just killing off the thread. It's stopping it, right? So there we go. So if we go ahead and run the game now, nothing really is going to happen still. We still got our basic window here. Now again, this beginning tutorial is, or this, you know, the first video is probably going to be the most boring one there is out of the entire series, because here is just setting up all the back frame stuff, you know, stuff that you can't really see, stuff that really just makes the game work, you know. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up the game loop. This is basically the heartbeat of the game. You know, we need the game loop. You need a game loop or else the game's not going to be able to update itself. You know, every game has some sort of version of a game loop in it. So the game loop we're going to create now is not my own code. I've actually gotten this from a long time ago, actually, and I don't quite remember where, but I believe, you know, even Notch uses this type of game loop as well. And a lot of people do use this game loop, so it is very popular, and I do recommend it. So I'm going to go ahead and type it out now, and I'll be right back. So here is the game loop. Now if you want to go ahead and pause the video now and go ahead and copy that out, everything should be good. So go ahead and pause the video. And so basically, again, I could have typed this out for you in real time, made the video longer and all that stuff and kind of wasted your time with that, because I can't really explain how it exactly works. I have an idea on how it works, but there's better resources out there to figure out the game loop and logic and how this all works. Or if somebody in the comment section can figure this out, like in detailed description, go ahead and write that out if you guys want to. Or you know, there are better resources out there to figure out this game loop. It is a very popular game loop. A lot of people use it. So yeah, I'm gonna leave that to them. You know, again, I get the basis of it, and but you know, it's a lot of math. So that's really all it is. You know. So let's go ahead and continue. I went ahead and put in a tick method here and a render method. So if we got to go ahead and create those methods. So private void tick and private void render. If I can type. Okay. So there we go. So if we go ahead and run the game now, as you can see, we now get an FPS in our console here. So that is a huge FPS. That's 8 million, I believe, and that's kind of too much for me. But that's all right, because it's going to go down a lot once we actually enter in our buffer strategy, right? So here we're just going to create a buffer strategy within our render method. We'll call it BS, and this is equal to this.get buffer strategy. Now, when we create this buffer strategy, it's going to start off being with the value of null. So if BS equals null, then we're going to say this.create buffer strategy 3 and return. And the reason, whatever we put in this parameter here is going to be how many buffers it creates. So we want 3 is recommended. You can have 2. But I wouldn't recommend going over 3. I mean, this is, I've had detailed explanations of this in my past series tutorials, so if you want to go ahead and check that out. But this is basically creating 3 buffers within your game, right? So after we've gotten that, we say we create our graphics variable g equals bs.getDrawGraphics. And then here we just dispose of the graphics and we say bs.show. So now that we've got that, we go and run the game and we get this flashing. And as you can see, our FPS just dropped dramatically now to 8 million to 4,000. So if we go ahead and we can stop that by just setting a color, color.black, and just filling a rectangle with our width, or actually 0, 0 width height. So if we run that, now we have a black screen with around 2,000 FPS. So pretty cool. And we could change that color anything we want, you know, green, whatever. So now we actually have control of our game a little bit. We've now set up the basic fundamentals for our game, and now we can go ahead and start with the actual programming of the game. So let's go and leave a like, go and subscribe. Next tutorial, we're going to go ahead and look at linked lists and creating our game objects class. Again, it's going to be a little bit more on the side of creating the back end of it, but once we get through this back end of creating our game, that's when we can really start creating, you know, the stuff I was talking about before: full menu systems, enemy AI, player customization, reading, writing files for game saves and game loads, music, sounds, spawning systems, upgrades, power-ups, collision detection, all of that stuff, you know, creating our player, creating keyboard input movement for it, so all of that stuff. So go leave a like, go and subscribe, and let me know what you guys think of this series. And if I went too fast, which I'm thinking I might have, let me know, and next tutorial I'll slow it down for you guys. And maybe if you guys need any more explanation, I will do my best to go ahead and try this. Again, this back end stuff is really I'm really just touching the surface of it. So once we get farther into the code, I'm going to be able to explain it a lot more, because it's going to be, you know, 100% my own code from my knowledge. Again, this is all stuff that a lot of people use and a lot of people go off of by creating games. So go leave a like, go and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.